Hi everyone, I'm the plant propagator and welcome to my channel. Today I'm in the laboratory and I just have some quick things that I want to share with you, but the main thing I want to show you is root growth in some of my deflasked orchids. I also want to show you a little bit about how I deflask the orchids and how I normally take care of them. And I'm trying something a little bit new today, and I want to start off with that. Well, first of all, the orchids that I'm deflasking today are Encyclia tampensis, and that's the Tampa butterfly orchid, or the Florida butterfly orchid shown right here in this flask. These flasks are just packed, and I already pulled out the contents of one of the flasks, and I have that in the container here. But these things were just, I got a few of these, and they're just, the containers are just full, so it's time to get them out, and the leaves are actually starting to brown a little bit inside the container, so it really is time to deflask these orchids. When you deflask them, you just pull them out, you massage all of the medium off, you massage the roots out really well. You get all of the charcoal containing medium off of the roots, and really that's the main thing that you need to be concerned about, is getting the medium off of the roots, because the medium still contains nutrients and sugar and things like that, and it'll promote the growth of bacteria, which is and fungi, which is undesirable in your freshly deflasked orchids. So these are some of the orchids that I deflasked. They're right here. Out here. They're right here. And so these are what the orchids look like, and there's lots of nice roots on them, and they're ended up pretty big. So when I pull an individual plant out, and that's right here, and I can show you how just massive they are. The plants themselves are pretty big, the root systems are pretty large. And because this is a little atypical, but because these plants are so big, they're a little bit harder to pot up. But the way that you pot this up is fairly straightforward. I have Orchiata bark in this container right here. And what you do is you simply put and these, I should say, I pulled these out, put them in this container, sprayed the seedlings down with water just a little bit, just to maintain the high humidity, because they're a little sensitive, and then I keep the top of the container on. So this is how I store them while I'm waiting and as I'm moving along. So you got to maintain kind of high humidity here as you're working with these orchids. The thing is, and I'll take one of the biggest plants right here. They're all pretty big. And again, what I try to do is get these orchids as big as possible in flasks, because that's what I know, that's what I can do well. And so if I get big orchids, I mean, come on, look at this. You can get big orchids in the flasks, then it gives them kind of a head start, a boost on life in general as they are deflasked. But the way that I do this is I put the orchid, I put all the root system down in the pot, I hold this thing in place. I got to go over here and get my Orchiata bark. And I get my Orchiata bark and I just kind of push it around the plant, and then you make sure that it's in place. All right, so that's really all there is to it, is to get this plant and make sure the Orchiata bark is down around the root system. One thing that people tend to do when they're deflasking, which you have to watch out for and be careful about, is they want to plant the plants like they do other plants, and they want to plant them deep in whatever medium you're using to support the plants. And what you should do is, these are orchids, so the roots have to be somewhat exposed on these. This is just how orchids grow. The roots don't like to be buried too much. And, you know, I don't know, there's a root coming out of the bottom of this pot here, but if you take a look at the plant in the Orchiata bark, you can see that I leave kind of the roots, the base of the plant, I leave it exposed, and that's fine. The reason I do this is so that you can see when there's new, you want to be able to gauge how your orchids are growing all the time. And what you want to be able to see is the roots coming right where the roots are going to come out right here. The roots that are on the plant might elongate a little bit, but probably the main thing that's going to happen is you're going to see initiation of new roots as they adjust to the rooting medium shown that they're in right here. So this is about the right planting level, and you want to make sure that you can see the new root growth, because you have to watch what's going on, and that's an indicator of when they're ready to be acclimated and when they're ready to be taken out. So that's what I wanted to show you really quickly on how to deflask these orchids. One of the other things that I want to show you, so I use Orchiata bark, but I really like using leca for growing my orchids, so I called up the manufacturers of leca, which is, they're actually, I don't think the company's in the United States, but I called their main distributor in the U.S. And I asked them if they had any product that was smaller so that I could use them for seedlings. And the guy said, no, they have original and then they have giant. And those are the two sizes that I have and I'm familiar with, but for seedlings it's a little bit too, they're a little bit too big for that application. I then asked the guy if I could crack them up and make them make smaller pieces, and the guy said, no, you can't do that either, because what happens is those leca, they have a coating on them, and if you they're in these, they're little you know, spheres, and if you crack that up, you essentially eliminate the benefit of having a coating. You create a lot of dust, and that's undesirable too. So I'm looking for alternate potting media that I want to use for my orchid seedlings. So what I'm trying today, and we'll see how this goes. I like trying stuff that's new. So this is something, this is a new product that I'm evaluating, and this is used a lot of times just for seedlings and for growing seeds of other plants. And these are Horticubes Aromax by Oasis. And I'll show you the label right here on the box. This is material that's formed in sheets, and I wanted to try it for my orchids. And I know some of the people in the R&D program in this company, so I contacted them and I said, can you send me some so that I can evaluate some for orchids? And they said, because I know the guys, they said, okay. So they sent me this stuff. And what this is, here, let me open the container and show you what this material is. So it is, so here's a full sheet right here, and here's a sheet that I broke here. But this is really, there's nothing to this. This is incredibly lightweight, very absorbent, very you know, lots of air pockets. It's like a big, it's not a sponge because it's not even as heavy as a sponge, but it really absorbs the water. So what I did with the other part, so here's the full sheet and there's the sheet. So the sheet, I broke off a sheet and I put it in this container right here, and then I added water. Right now this container is heavy because this stuff sucks up the water big time. So what I did in here is I took my tampensis seedlings and I shoved them down. On the top of this is kind of a grid system, as you can see. And on the top of it, there are the holes that you can see, and that's used for seedlings. Actually, that's what this thing is used for, is you crack off each individual cube, and there's a hole in the middle for seedlings. You could put cuttings in there also. But what I did is I used the cracks in between those cubes, and I shoved my tampensis seedlings down in there. Now I couldn't do this with the bigger seedlings because they won't go because the roots are too big. But I can do this with you know, the cattleyas and the dendrobiums and everything like that. And I'm going to put some of the other seedlings that I deflasked today. I'm going to put them in this container and try it. Now we'll see how it goes. And what I have is a comparison of this this material, the Aromax material, and I'm going to compare that to Orchiata, and I'll keep you updated and see how it goes. All right, so that's all I have for right here. What I want to do is take you in the laboratory and show you some of the deflasked orchids that I made anywhere from a few weeks ago to a month ago. And what I want to show you is the incredible growth that I'm getting from some of these seedlings in the Orchiata bark. And the question is, all right, why do I want to change to something else if the Orchiata is working so well? Well, it is working well. You know, the Orchiata is expensive, and I think this is going to be expensive too, but we'll see if it's more convenient. I just like trying new things, and we'll see. And I want to show you how this comes out later, but I also want to show you the incredible root growth. And I've got one situation where I'll show you. I collected an image a few weeks ago, and then we'll take a look at it today again, and you can see the incredible amount of growth that is occurring in these seedlings over a very short amount of time. So these deflasked seedlings, again, they're starting out big and they're growing really, really fast right when they're deflasked. Sorry. So let's go take a look in the laboratory and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so these are some orchids that were deflasked. I'm looking at the date on the side of the box, not quite a month ago. So these are cattleyas, and these are some of the new hybrids that I've generated from my crosses. What I want you to notice though is if you take a look at them, is if you get just the right angle on them, you can see, you know, the root system on some of these guys and how those root systems are growing, right? And some of this is, you know, it's a month, and not all of the, sorry about that, not all of the plants are doing this or showing this incredible growth, but enough of them are so that it gives you a good indicator of what's going on. So there's nice root systems growing out of not all, but the majority of these plants. That, I think, at the base of that plant, about in the middle of the screen here, the viewing area, is a new leaf that's coming out of this plant, and that's it. This is a new hybrid, and I got no idea what this is going to look like. I'm really happy. Huge leaf right there. For the stage that this is. One of the interesting things is this plant right here, and this is actually a sibling of this plant and this plant. I think I can't tell for sure, but I know. But this one, it's got really thin and unusual leaves, but look at that nice new root growing out of there. So there's some really nice roots. You know, the one on this plant looks like it's growing you know, up on the outside of the container, and you have to be a little careful about these things because they'll actually stick to the containers, and you got to be a little careful when you're moving these things around. So this is about a month old, and these, not quite a month old, probably about like 3.5 weeks old. And in another week I'll start acclimating this, which means I'll start taking the top of this container off and exposing it to the ambient humidity and the environment in here. All right, moving over, these plants, these are Dendrobiums. And these dens, I didn't flask, actually Jim deflasked these, and these are his. But I want to show you these, I think it's these two plants right here, and if I can get the right angle on them. I took a picture of these two plants about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I'll put the picture on the image that I took from this on the right side of the screen, and what you hopefully can see is how much more growth that I'm getting out of these plants over the last 2 to 3 weeks. So a lot of the roots that we're growing here, you can see the shoot that's on the left side compared to the old one on the right side. The shoots growing out more. The roots are also elongating more. But these, if I focus in on the plants, you should be able to see that there's the root, the base of these plants are just growing. I mean, come on, look at this. This is all the same Dendrobium, by the way, and if you can see from the tag here, this is Dendrobium mirabellianum. But these are growing just incredibly well with nice new green roots, as you can see there. The only reason you don't see green roots on there, and you can't see it any better, is because they're down in the medium. They're actually growing down. You can't see green roots because the green root tips are down in the medium. But you can see all over this container, all of these Dendrobiums are just cranking out new roots, and these guys are ready to go. And I'm just really happy with this because the plants, they look pretty big for just being deflasked a short time ago. I started out with big plants, and you put them in under these conditions, under these right conditions. You give them the right light, temperature, and they just took off. And I'm really happy with these things. They're growing like crazy. But you see the same type of things here. And I should say these are in an ocean of tags because there's different hybrids that are in here, whereas in this container, all of these plants are the same thing. Anyway, but you can see you'll get just really phenomenal root growth on these plants, and that's an indicator of the health and the quality of the plant material. And what I hope is that this continues. I'm passing these plants back on to the rightful owner, probably in an hour or two. And I just wanted to document this incredible root growth that we see on these plants before I turn the plants over to him. He better not kill these. No, I don't think he will. He knows more about growing orchids than I do and most other people. So anyway, that's all I have today. I just wanted to show you the fantastic root growth that I'm seeing with some of these seedlings. And I hope you enjoyed my video today. If you liked what you saw and you want to keep on seeing that, would help me out if you could click on like, share, and subscribe to my channel if you're not already a subscriber. Okay, taking a final look at both of these containers. This one is going away. And that's all I have for today. Happy propagating.